Chad, I appreciate you coming on. Let's switch gears. They're trying to
Yep.
expunge Kamala Harris's record. They're trying to act like
Right.
she wasn't in charge of the border. They're trying to act like she didn't, try to bail people out of prison or out of jail that were rioting and tearing down cities in 2020. They're trying to act like she was a good prosecutor and a good AG in California. Of course, she was a horrible prosecutor and a horrible AG. They're trying to make her look like she is the next coming. All this is all of a sudden because Joe Biden can't beat Donald Trump in November. Let's talk about her appointment as the person in charge of the border. They don't want us to call her the Border Czar. I'm going to. The media called her the Border Czar for 3 years. What are your thoughts about how she's done in that job where she was to oversee how to fix the border issues?
Well, obviously, it's been a failure. This administration has been an abject failure when it comes to that southern border and any sense of border security. And so that's her record. And she can try to run away from it. And the liberal media can say, well, she's not the czar. That's never a position. She was never appointed to that position. These border security policies are the Biden-Harris policies.
Yes.
She is the vice president. She had every opportunity to change them, to voice her concern, to speak out against them. She did none of that. And so just like President Biden, these are her policies. Just like Secretary Mayorkas, these are her policies. This is what she owns. And just the definition of failed leadership is running away from the decisions that you make. And this is what the mainstream media is trying to do. This is what the vice president is trying to do, to say, I was never in charge of the border. Well, in fact, your administration was. Either you run on the successes of your administration and you run on the failures. And the border is a failure by any stretch of the imagination and all the metrics and data out there. This is a failure. She owns it, just like President Biden and Secretary Mayorkas does. Now, when we talk about the czar, look, she is the vice president. And in order to secure that border, you need DHS, but you also need the Department of Justice, the Department of State. You need intelligence communities. You need a whole of government effort. And the only individual, there's two individuals that can bring that fight to the United States government. That's the president and the vice president.
Right.
And under President Trump, the border czar was the president. He was our border czar.
Yes.
Because he was heavily involved in decisions. And we know President Biden is not. And so the task would fall on Vice President Harris in March of 21, when President Biden said, you're there, you're going to go down there, and you're going to figure out what the problem is, and we're going to stop the influx of folks coming in. And that is her job, and she can try to run away from it all she wants, but that is her job.
This video is sponsored by Private Internet Access. If you're not familiar with a VPN, listen up. This is really important. Your ISP, your internet service provider, can see every website you go to, can see where you're browsing, what movies you're watching, who you're communicating with, and they get to keep all that stuff. And later, the government can ask them about it. So instead of even dealing with that, you've got to get a VPN. I use Private Internet Access, PIA, and I want you to do so as well. It connects very, very quickly. It completely cloaks where you are, who you are, what you're doing. If you want to go on Netflix and you see some movie that's blocked in your region, you can change the region. You can actually do this with just a press of a simple button. It doesn't feel like you've done anything, and the speeds are lightning fast. Click on the link in the description. Go there right now and get yourself Private Internet Access. It's cheap, it's easy, it'll keep you protected. And you ever go to like McDonald's or to maybe a Starbucks or something, and you sit down to use their internet, you press this button, it still keeps you safe from everybody else who's on that internet. Go right now, check out Private Internet Access. You'll be glad you did. Now back to the video. Well, it was an official declaration by the President of the United States. And you know who named her the Border Czar? Axios and the AP. These are far left-wing news outlets. They gladly called her the Border Czar. She was questioned by Lester Holt, famously now, have you gone to the border? We've been to the border. We've gone to the border. No, have you gone? You haven't gone. I haven't gone to Europe either, she says. So she knew that was her title. She knew that was the mantle that she agreed and accepted. But Chad, here's the thing. You're saying 12 million people have come across illegally. Do we really know what the number is? Is it 12? Is it 15? Could it be 20? We have no clue, do we?
Well, 12 is the best guess that we have, right? It certainly could be higher. It's certainly not any lower than that.
Right.
That's a combination of those folks that have come across the border that have been encountered or apprehended. But then that number also includes gotaways. And the gotaway number, which is hovering around 2 million, is a little bit of a swag. It's a little bit of a guess.
Yeah.
Because by the very definition of a gotaway is they've gotten away from law enforcement. So we don't really have a great accurate number of of how many of those individuals have come across. So the number could certainly be higher than the 2 million, which would push that 12 million number up much higher as well.
And 370 are known terrorists that we know
Right.
about. How many known terrorists that we don't know about? You know what I mean?
Yep.
There are so many cracks in the border, so many openings in the border, so many misuses of policy with asylum and this ICE One, Border Patrol One app, and all this other stuff. These NGOs
Right.
that are helping them out. We don't really. Could there be thousands of terrorists in this country? Could Hamas be making a base here? Could Hezbollah be here? I mean, I'm not reaching here. That's possible, is it not?
Well, I think it is possible because it's not only, we're not only quote unquote vetting those that we encounter. And as we've seen over the last couple of months, even though some of those that we vet, we have concerns with, right? We have to come back after the fact while they're in the United States and pick them up, even though we've quote vetted them and cleared them as they cross the border.
Right.
And those are just the ones we encounter. And then you got to look at the 2 million gotaways, and we don't know who they are. 2 million individuals. We don't know who they are. We don't know where they are. We don't know why they entered this country. And we don't know where they entered the country from. So absolutely, there could be a whole host of bad individuals who came into the country for a lot of nefarious reasons. And so we don't know who they are. And so those give Border Patrol probably the most concern.
And these open border policies by the Border Czar Harris and also by her boss, President Biden, it causes inhumanity for children, for women, for families that are coming across. They're being extorted, they're being raped, they're being killed, and they act like they don't know about that, they don't care about that. When you were in charge of the DHS, when President Trump was in, you guys got a really hard time for separating 500 kids from their parents who broke the law. That was, I mean, unbelievable. You're ripping the children from the arms of their parents. And now we don't even know where 85,000 kids are, and nobody seems to care. I mean, I think it turns out your report says 525,000 unaccompanied children have come here, and they're coming here because of the magnets and the open border. Why aren't we talking more about the inhumane treatment of these families, these women, these children, as we hear the left act like we have to open the border because these people are looking for a better life? They're dying.
Right.
They're being raped.
Yeah.
There are rape trees, Chad, that you've seen.
Absolutely. And we talk about this all the time, right? This is what the mainstream media wants you to believe, that if you don't allow anyone into the country, anyone and everyone who wants to come to the country, then you're inhumane and that you're a bad person. Instead of saying, let's try to address why they're incentivized to come in the first place and make sure that they're safe close to their home country. There are some countries that they can't stay in, that are war torn, and others, right? The vast majority of folks will never qualify for asylum. They just want a better life. They want to improve their economic condition, and God bless all of them. But that's not asylum. That's not how you enter the U.S., but yet they're using it as a loophole to enter the U.S. And if we don't get serious about this and cut this off and really address it, then it's going to continue to proliferate, and we're just gonna see millions and millions and millions of more individuals come here illegally and stay in the shadows and cause all sorts of issues here in the United States. So you've got to address the asylum issue, and that's what we were trying to do under the Trump administration. Is let's try to eliminate these incentive factors that draw people here illegally, that they put their lives in the hands of cartels and smugglers who don't care about them. Very bad things happen to them on the way here, and the left just ignores it. They don't care about it. They don't care. All they care about is making sure that those individuals can come into the country. And there's a better way to address this situation.
Chad, by the way, it's Chad Wolf, former DHS, acting DHS secretary under Donald Trump. Go to AmericaFirstPolicy.com. Is there a way to get rid of those people who did it illegally and allow them to come back in line and try to do it legally? The left is saying mass deportation, xenophobia, blah, blah. The right is saying we've got to get rid of everybody who broke the law, or else we won't ever have a secure country again. So that's going to be the battle in this election coming up this November. I don't think it's the most important battle, but it's close to being at the top. I think the economy for people is probably a little bit worse. But having said all of that, how do you get rid of those who broke the law without the left making it look like, the right is a bunch of devils that hate people unlike us?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things at play here. I think one, most Americans, and you just talked about it, have a basic sense of fairness. And they see individuals who break the law, who come across the border illegally and be released into the United States and not be required to address that illegal behavior. It's just not fair. It's not fair.
Right.
You've broken the law. You haven't come here the right way. And somehow you're going to be rewarded for doing that. And I think that that's why there's an overwhelming majority, when you look at the polling today, that individuals support deporting individuals. Some even support mass deportations
Right.
of individuals who knowingly broke the law. And I think we got to understand that too. I would say is that deporting individuals, it's not a bad term. It's just it's a part of any sane country's immigration system, which is the ability to remove people that don't have a legal right to be here. Otherwise, why do we have laws? Why do we have an immigration law if we're just going to allow anyone and everyone to stay here? And so removing people that don't have a legal right to be here is part of a functional immigration system. And what we've seen is that the Biden administration has allowed millions of folks to come here that they know based on data that's on their own website that will never qualify for asylum, and yet they facilitate this. And so this idea of we're not just going to ignore what happened over 3.5 or 4 years, we're actually going to take some action to remedy that. Now, it's going to be tough and it's going to be difficult, but there are ways to do that. And as you indicated, Joe, you can incentivize people to leave as well, right?
Absolutely.
Most people come here because they want a job or they want immigration benefits. And if you deny them both because you're here illegally, but you allow them to leave and perhaps allow them to come back under a different scenario, well, guess what? They're going to be incentivized to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Chad, I can't thank you enough for the information and the time again today, my friend.
Yep.
AmericaFirstPolicy.com. It's Chad Wolf. Let's do it again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, brother. We're back after this in the Joe Pag Show. Stay here.